So hey anime fans, the series name is What If Naruto Betrayed Artemise? Let's start the series. It become in the darkest part of the underworld, near the heart of the being that has been his prison for an eternity. Earlier than him was his youngest son, the Titan Lord Kronos. So, your plan has failed miserably, my toddler, and now you are earlier than me. For what? To beg for my help? A chained discern spoke bitterly without searching up towards his rebellious son, genuine to his harsh words. Before the chained parent become Kronos, or at the least part of his remains, that even as without mouth, still one way or the other had the capability to talk. Father, what I have accomplished to you wasn't without purpose. You have been a mad tyrant that unjustly imprisoned his own youngsters. However, now that my personal son rules, he banished us Titans, treating us like nugatory beasts once again. The strong Kronos is soliciting for my help, to enhance his desperate state of affairs and that of his siblings. But what is going to I am getting from this deal? Why have to I resource you? The chained man spoke back angrily, nonetheless disenchanted approximately the horrible betrayal that had took place so many millennials in the past. You will be in power, father. Each person will understand that Uranus, the primordial of the sky, has back to rule again. All that I ask of you and go back, is to loose me and my siblings from Tartarus. Kronos spoke with conviction in his voice, and the realized named Uranus started out to laugh. For the primary time since his son cut him to portions, oh the extremely good prophecy, that very thing that every Olympian had feared for over 50 years now, have been fulfilled. But by some means at some point the gods had made an high-quality huge mistake. All three, Zeus, Poseidon and Hades, had in their utter panic completely disregarded a positive element that could have proved fatal for the gods, regardless of their power. None of them have been the eldest god. There has been someone that have been born or rather created a long time earlier than them, Aphrodite, the goddess of affection. It had been her daughter, Silena Beauregard, that become the subject of the prophecy. However, in place of a glorious battle or a heroic fight, her simple selection to no longer betray Olympus had altered the destiny of the sector. Instead of spying for Luke, she had informed Chiron where he had wanted to meet her, and before an hour had exceeded some of the strongest heroes and gods had assembled and efficiently ambushed the princess Andromeda, killed Luke and tossed Kronos' stays lower back into the underworld, after efficaciously stopping what could probably had been the cease of all human civilization. Now not only Camp 1/2 Blood, however additionally the gods of Olympus, had been celebrating, but no matter the superb success, the party became reduced quick whilst the ghostly shape of the mighty Python appeared of their center. Many thought that the snake-like creature had been killed by means of Apollo for all time, so whilst the smoke started to form into the shape of the reptile, all gods have been straight away on area. However, before someone could say something or assault, the snake began to hiss. A toddler of a virgin goddess will offer hope via his promise. The 1/2 Blood had seen too many die, however has the strength within him. To break the sky to win he need to sacrifice what made him sane. His biggest weakness are his precious people. The two confronted gods want to pick out a personality. Greeks will worry the blood of Bellona 1/2 bloods, and gods ought to combat without a regret or else the enemy will satisfy his chance. In the very last battle the defeated will fade, sacrificing himself to resurrect the decayed one. Aspect changed into obvious to every person that notwithstanding their efforts, some other war turned into coming. The end became what Naruto concept while he laid loss of life in the middle of the scattered landscape that turned into formerly called Frost USA. It was almost 5 cruel months in the past while the whole thing seemed to go downhill. Madara had declared the fourth shinobi struggle, and in spite of their differences the 5 terrific hidden villages stood together, united with a commonplace intention. On account that fateful day a lot seemed to have passed off. Massive battles were accompanied by small skirmishes, the ruthless destruction of villages and cities and the tragic death of such a lot of. Despite their great attempt, the United Shinobi Alliance could not forestall Madara in his relentless advances to acquire the Jinchuriki. Just a week ago Killer Bee had fallen in his fight in opposition to Ike, and Gyuki become sealed into the ghetto Mazo. Naruto has recognized on the grounds at the beginning that they finally might come to get him, and while the tragic news of Bee's loss of life arrived, he knew he'd become next. However, he wouldn't move easy on them. He had skilled hard for at the present time. He used endless shadow clones to master no longer handiest as many ninjutsus, ninja techniques, and genjutsus, illusionary strategies, as viable. However, additionally to deliver his taijutsu, body method, up to par and to look at Fuinjutsu, sealing techniques, from his father's scrolls. But most significantly he found out Senjutsu, sage techniques, no matter his young age of best 14 years. Similarly to this he allowed his shadow clones paintings on all form of Bukijutsus, weapon strategies, like Kenjutsu, sword method, Shurikenjutsu, throwing weapon strategies, and even Kyujutsu, bow strategies, something, while now not frequently utilized by shinobi, he discovered pretty treasured and regarded to have a natural talent for. When he noticed the black cloak with purple clouds of Akatsuki, he certainly felt that he had a hazard to come out on top. But Madara had executed the unpredictable and, despite the Kyuubi being sealed in Naruto, resurrected the Jubi, partly at the least. When he saw the strong frame of the Jubi, he knew that everyone his schooling nonetheless wasn't enough, so he grew to become to the source of his issues and confronted the Kyuubi. No, Kurama, he reminded himself. He had learned his name after befriending him, or as a minimum setting up a partnership with the fox. Seizing the fox's electricity was alternatively clean in retrospect. Notwithstanding what many concept demon chakra wasn't evil or vile, but more just like the essence of rage. For Naruto to correctly use that electricity he needed to embody the rage and use it as a weapon. Collectively they fought and succeeded, as a minimum to a few degree. Madara laid lifeless to his FT as did every other final Akatsuki member, but with it came the fee of two of his most crucial humans. Kakashi and Tsunade had sacrificed themselves to finish both Aike and Obito respectively, but even in any case became sacrificed, the Jubi became nonetheless rampaging, and Naruto did the only element that changed into left for him to do. He used the same seal his deceased father did such a lot of years in the past, but as opposed to a new child he sealed the Jubi into himself. He could take the beast with him to the belly of the Shinigami, although it would cost his existence, no matter his approaching loss of life. Notwithstanding his buddy's demise like flies, notwithstanding the sacrifice his sensei and Tsunade had made, he could still smile. Maximum of the Konoha 11 have been still alive. Konohamaru would end up the Hokage. The world becomes safe. No baby might must bring the burden of being a Jinchuriki once more, and whilst his frame would fade with him, he become sure that he had been renowned like he dreamed. Saving the arena, although it intended his loss of life, became absolutely something Naruto had fortuitously achieved. Therefore, while he opened his eyes to peer a white plain, he became truly and deeply amazed. He usually imagined the belly of the Shinigami as a black void, and for a moment he asked himself if he did something incorrect. You probably did no longer, son, a mild voice said behind him, and as speedy as possible he spun around to look. That there surely became his mom, Kushina Uzumaki, that had spoken to a mother? He stuttered. How was that viable? His father ought to be in the Shinigami's belly, not his mother. You're right, my son, however we are not within the belly of a Shinigami. Kushina explained his notion. You might need to take a seat down for this. And as quickly as she had said this, an opulent chair regarded at the back of Naruto. The pink head took a deep breath and looked her son straight in the eyes. Naruto, my son, I imagined assembly you considering the fact that I left your global idea about what I would tell you first, how I need to explain the entirety to you. But I never came up with a satisfying idea. I can't even begin to describe how proud I am of you. Your complete existence had been a mission most couldn't stand a day, and still you overcame every obstacle in your way, she stated with a mild smile. I'm Kushina Uzumaki. However, I'm moreover Artemis, the Greek goddess of the hunt. And so his mother started out to inform Naruto her tale, how there are extraordinary sighs and that there may be one where gods, like herself, exist, hidden from most of the people in the international, and how deities were capable of visit various dimensions, but may want to handiest do so whilst leaving their powers behind. She informed him that she turned into born into the Uzumaki clan, how she spent her early life in Yuza, after which in Konoha, how she knew that she was a goddess in a special dimension but failed to care about this here, and the way Minato had altered the whole lot, that regardless of her oath, that she had stored for millennials, regardless of her hate for Moskai, Minato was able to change the whole lot, and that she honestly fell in love with him, and extra importantly that, whilst she cherished Minato more than everyone earlier than, that she loved him, Naruto, greater than even him, greater than her existence itself. While she recalled how she became forced to depart him at the back of she, tears commenced welling up in her eyes. She defined to him that regardless of their power as gods she may want to handiest go to every measurement once, and notwithstanding her best attempt, she couldn't journey to Naruto nor should she get him to her. After a second to calm themselves, she advised him an awesome deal about gods and monsters, the cutting-edge time and the way humans lived in her international. When I told you earlier then that you couldn't have come to my dimension, that wasn't entire actual Naruto. There is an antique technique that permit a person skip from one dimension to some other. However, the hassle is which you want the aid from not only one primordial however two, one from each world to make the transfer whole. She stopped once more and collect her mind. Over the direction of the closing year I used to be able to make a goodbye with Nyx, the primordial of the night time, to lend me, us her help, seeing as you have the Jubi sealed interior you have got also the aid from a primordial of this world. As unwilling as he is probably, Naruto, you have got alternatives now. You can live for your present-day route and go to the Shinigami, or could come to my global. However, I ought to warn you something darkish stirs there, and it's probably you can lose pals once more. Artemis completed and looked at her son. Naruto did not want to suppose lengthy about this. Even as I don't like the thought of dropping precious human beings once more, I'd as a substitute be with them for a while and try to guard them, and even if I don't know all people there, yet I still have to guard you, he exclaimed with a grin. And as quickly as he said this his mother started to smile brightly. Adequate. Then I assume we quality get started out on coaching you some crucial belongings you want to understand proper now? How a good deal time can we have? Asked Naruto. Now not almost as tons as I would really like to spend with you. I'm wished on Olympus in multiple weeks. We just killed a risky enemy and that I immediately left afterwards. So they'll be busy with party for some time. But I'm still needed at the next solstice. Fortunately time drifts specific right here. We are able to have more than 1 month as a minimum. That's notable. What can we start with? Nicely English, of course, and so, Artemis started out teaching her son as a great deal as she ought to of their time collectively. As she had told him they commenced with English and weighed to his Kagebushins, he was able to get it down till he spoke Adora. It turned into his local language in a short time. Next Artemis had him study all type of books about records, society, and technology of the sector, at the same time as she herself told him approximately the Greek gods and taught him the maximum extensive things she had discovered, approximately the fight against monsters because the goddess of the hunt, 0000. It turned into an feeling not like any other he had felt earlier. Then, traveling to a distinctive dimension became a brand new experience for him. Afterwards he could not tell if it took seconds or centuries. He didn't sense ache, to be precise, he didn't experience something. It turned into as if his whole body had long passed numb. However, not like usual. Whilst the limb were given numb, it wasn't discomfortable. As quickly as he landed inside the global, he truly knew that this area changed into extraordinary than the basic nations. There were so many smells he hadn't experienced before. There was less nature chakra around him. He should even sense that the air stress had changed. He observed all of this earlier than even starting his eyes. When he did so he saw that he laid in a room that, regardless of being indoors, felt like it changed into out of doors. The walls in conjunction with the ceiling had one-of-a-kind forest reasons on them. Alongside with some scenes he knew from the stories his mother had instructed him, and artwork of different animals. On the table to his left, became an easy envelope, on pinnacle of a container, that were both addressed to him. Naruto sat up and commenced analyzing the letter inner. Dear Naruto, I am sorry that I departed from you without an evidence after bringing you right here. However, while I used to be away, an oracle communicated a new prophecy, that honestly, foretold a future conflict. While I would have loved to spend a few more time with you, that regrettably must wait until a later factor. I recognize that I have briefed you earlier then, however please recall to maintain your background a mystery, till I claim you. You are presently at a hideout of my hunters in New York and have to be capable to reach Camp Half-Blood without problems. You could use this vicinity each time you're inside the metropolis. Inside the condominium is a few device that you are unfastened to apply. A number of the things are what me and my hunters use frequently. However, along them I introduce several shinobi guns crafted from fabric that can defeat monsters, including kunais, shuriken, ninja cord, and a number of the swords that are just like those you are used to. The cabin holds some cloths that resemble the ones of your global, and a few different supplies like ink and brushes which you would possibly locate beneficial. In this container is a special present for you I controlled to acquire. It is the bow of Odysseus and prefer inside the beyond most effective he turned into successful to draw. Now you may be the simplest one which can use him. The bow fires arrows at a speed some distance quicker than regular, and every time you draw him an arrow will seem, take as tons cash, cloths and device as you want and ensure to make it to camp 1/2 blood thoroughly. It saddens me significantly. But earlier than you go I must tell you another aspect. At the same time as I don't like to make speedy conclusion, it's very possibly that you are the toddler of the prophecy once more, and that the load to store this international can be yours once more. As I have instructed you earlier then, most might be astonished and harassed once I declare you, and now I haven't any doubt that monsters will try to taunt you with your historical past, but realize this. No matter what is going to happen inside the destiny, you're my maximum valuable factor in this and each other international. More so than your father become. Extra than my brother and father is, or even extra than my hunters. I love you, Artemise. Even as analyzing the letter, Naruto started out to sob silently and tears started to go with the flow from his eyes. His mother had advised him this things normally before, as Kushina and Artemis, but in spite of all that he nonetheless had a few fear that she resented him for being a man, and would selected her hunters over him. To have her stated the complete opposite made him all however neglect about the possibility of struggle, or the load he might have to bring. That on my own changed into sufficient for him to store the world 10 instances. 0000 the ecosystem, at Camp Half-Blood, might be quality described with the word awkward. Whilst the news concerning the destruction of the Princess Andromeda and the banishment of Kronos to Tartarus reached the camp, anybody changed into extraordinarily delighted. But the excellent mood had settled speedy after the information about the brand new prophecy, that reputedly spoke from another conflict, had spread. Now everyone becomes stressed in the event that they need to have a good time, the prevention of a ability catastrophic war or fear the outbreak of a brand new one. To this gloomy mix of emotions become delivered the truth that since the destruction of Luke's ship, no one had visible as plenty because the tale of an unmarried monster. And at the same time as commonly half-bloods would not complain about this reality, it despite the fact that felt just like the calm before the typhoon, one of the few brilliant factors in recent camp history. As a minimum for the half-of-bloods, changed into that when 52 defeats in a row, they have been sooner or later capable of when a seize the flag recreation against the hunters, who had, to their very own and the campers' displeasure, stayed in the cabin 8 when you consider that Artemis had left them after the fight towards Kronos. And even as they all knew that their female may want to protect herself, they still were worried approximately her. Presently the whole camp alongside the hunters had been celebrating the development of the new Hades cabin, that changed into created for both Nico and Bianca, and the new cabins of a few different gods and goddesses that claimed their childs these days. Seemingly, Zeus had decided that it'd be useful for them if most of the half-of-bloods might be loyal to them, even more so with the approaching war. But the comfortable mood become interrupted through a voice all of sudden screaming, "We are under assault!" 0000 wow! Changed into the only component Naruto may want to think while he started out to look at the rental, if you can call it such. Calling it an armory might have been more becoming. While he organized for his final struggle of the struggle along Tsunade and Kakashi, he may want to freely use Konoha's ANBU armory and turned into even allowed to wear one of the special ANBU armors. That generally became restricted to individuals of the special unit. He turned into greatly surprised when he had seen the amount and quality of guns and gadget the ANBU had. However, it paled in contrast to the arsenal of the hunters. There have been rags with what he would name the finest bows feasible, heaps of equipment, from regular camping stuff to clothes, and even what he turned into able to identify as a few excessive tech or magical camouflage internet, real to his mom's words. He took a large amount of the system the hunters used, that he first stacked within the middle of the room. Subsequent, he opened the lockers and like Artemis had said there was each weapon a ninja may want to dream of, he added kind of a dozen holsters, filled with kunai and shuriken crafted from what he identified as divine silver, a steel that looked similar to normal silver, but was even whiter, to his confusion. There were additionally 3 holsters with kunai and shuriken made from what he believed to be normal metallic. It bewildered him due to the fact his mom told him that the whole thing else than celestial bronze, imperial gold, Stygian iron and divine silver would not harm monster and will simplest be used against demigods and regular mortals. Despite his confusion, he flung them at the stack. Alongside the throwing guns he grasped 10 pieces of ninja cord, made from divine silver, that collectively delivered up to more than 2 kilometers in length and a group of brushes with nearly a liter of ink, after he had accrued what ought to first-rate be described as primary equipment. The pile was spread all around the ground. To save you it from being damaged, he collected chakra, for the primary time, and probable even as the primary character, in this world, and created a Kaigebushin, that promptly after his introduction began to draw garage seals at the Unique's frame. Thanks to his extreme practice in Fuinjutsu together with his shadow clones, he was in a position to finish the seals in under an hour, and save the objects that had been formerly on the floor on exceptional parts of his body. Another time, he thanked Jiraiya for forcing him to take a look at seals. Not simplest would not he be able to deliver his equipment without them. However, additionally, he basically couldn't lose it, if no person reduce of his limb, an actually excellent department of the shinobi techniques. After he had finished his mediating about the awesomeness of Fuinjutsu, he became to the part he changed into secretly most excited of. At the beginning, he took the cloths that have been in one of the drawers, sealed some units of them into himself, and dressed in the final one. Proper to his mother's words, the cloths had been lots like the ones he had worn for the duration of his very last struggle. A black quick-sleeved blouse with an Uzumaki crest on the front, that became hid with the aid of the gray ANBU armor he wore above it. On his legs he wore simple black ninja pants, with white bandage above his black sandals. On his right leg he had holsters, one with divine silver and one with regular steel weapons. Afterwards he were given to the swords and determined several blades made from divine silver. He took a 60 centimeters long katana that he might have been at his left hip, 2 48 cm ninjatos that he strapped on his back with the handles displaying over his right shoulder, and in the end one 26 centimeters long tanto that he may want to strap to his right thigh. After he had completed attaching his weapons, he took them off again to draw numerous complicated containment seals that might permit him to cover them if no longer needed and to allow them to seem where they intended to be, whilst he wanted them. Finally, he opened the field with the bow and observed a without a doubt wonderful weapon. Even without his training in Kyujitsu, he would have been capable to inform that it turned into perfectly made. The bow was crafted from wooden and had a easy string. However, despite his normal looks, it had an aura of splendor that portrayed the deadliness along the wonderful of the weapon. Like his different weapons, he sealed it, this time on his left hand. Before he left the apartment, he had determined to seize a looking knife just like the ones his mother used, and strapped it to his decreased right leg. And so, Naruto Namikaze took his first step into the new world, and earlier than he had time to take within the full scene, a black blur raced towards him and a woman voice screamed, "Look out!" Exquisite Naruto idea, simply exceptional. The first time I set foot into this world, and that I right now want a few stranger to rescue me, it really is simply fan-fucking-tastic. The blonde was presently sitting on a park bench, close to the apartment the hunters used as a hideout, and become nonetheless processing the reality that as soon as he stepped out of the constructing, he immediately forgot the entirety his mother had advised him and set foot on the road, where a black automobile thoroughly should have introduced his early useless. If no longer for the ladies that had warned him, I ought to have gave the look of a total moron. Well, I can't trade the past. The railroad is perhaps the best way to get to Manhattan. I should manage to pay for a cab, but it'd possibly simply arouse suspicion, and I'm able to really run the manor from the Educate station. He found out, and commenced his track towards the summer camp, with his defend up and looking ahead to a literal flood of monsters to assault him any moments. 0000 Artemis had instructed him that it became in all likelihood that due to his heritage, he would be attacked through greater monster than even the children of the huge three. Most monsters hated her the most of all Olympians, due to the fact she was the one that hunted them continuously. Whilst he heard that, he changed into barely demanding, however also keen to combat monsters like his mom did. What he hadn't assumed were the mass of monsters that wanted to kill him, or as an alternative the dearth of them. On his complete manner from the apartment to the teach station and even at the train he hasn't seen whatever that would be taken into consideration a monster. He became presently tree-hopping closer to the borders of the camp, at a pace that would be a blur to the human eye, when he subsequently felt something. It became in contrast to the chakra signatures of people he changed into able to sense in the elemental international locations. However, he nonetheless ought to tell that there has been something, and even as he could not actually pinpoint it, he knew that it become malicious and that it most certainly have been monsters, a group of them if his feel failed to betray him, and then he noticed them. It turned into what might be great described as a battalion of monsters, all varieties of not unusual creatures his mom had instructed him about were gift. But oddly enough, now not one of the legendary monsters she hunts often. It became apparent to him that in spite of the amount of monster this turned into speculated to be a scouting birthday celebration that would record approximately the defenses of the camp and possibly even cause them to overconfident in their capabilities. From the manner the defenders had been positioned, he should tell that they weren't prepared for an assault, and had just recently been alarmed. If nothing takes place, a few campers surely will die, even if they might have the clean gained commonly, however proper now. Now we can't let that manifest, can we? He stated to himself, earlier than checking his gadget and beginning to formulate a plan. From what Mom had informed me, genjutsu might not absolutely paintings on monster, equal with maximum ninjutsus. I think taijutsu is likewise out of questions, and sealing all people into me won't try this time, he idea with a smirk, remembering how he had defeated the Jubi with fuinjutsu. That leaves me with bukijutsu, weapon techniques. Fortuitously I got all this excellent stuff, and so, he said of his genius plan that with 2 simple steps, could assure his victory. High as shitfaces, what you looking for? He cried toward the small navy that right away became closer to him. Step 1. Flip the eye of the navy toward yourself. Successful. Now step 2. Kill them all and live to tell the tale. Seems clean enough. And so he charged right into a battle nobody would actually desire to win. But Haya, he wasn't nobody, he had ended a struggle almost on his own. So what were a few lousy monsters? Camp half-blood shit, muttered Annabeth, at the same time as quickly converting into her battle gear. The monsters by some means were given the drop on them, and that they already misplaced the opportunity to move right into a war formation. Not to mention to formulate a plan that would prevent the loss of live on their side. Commonly a group of that size might be easily fought off by way of the campers. However, lamentably they weren't of tons use with none formation. The clash might begin in seconds, and he or she silently sent a prayer to every god, even the only that she despises, to maintain Percy and her different buddies' shop. Brace yourself, cried Chiron. However, before the armies should clash, a single voice echoed above the Destiny battlefield. High as shitfaces, what you looking for? And to the astonishment of anyone, monsters, campers and hunters, an unmarried person stood behind the attacking military, clad in primarily darkish clothes, with a grey vest and a few bandages around his limbs. No one could become aware of the person that become reckless sufficient to insult a navy of monsters, while standing by myself in front of them. Each single monster forgot about their former targets and charged on the blonde, who to Annabeth's shock simply smiled and started to run toward the navy to meet them heads-on. The defenders, for their part, had been completely bewildered, and Percy voiced that astonishment whilst he requested, who could do something like that? And why do they care a lot about him, when they have masses of other enemies in front of them? They aren't that harm whilst called shitfaces, are they? All and sundry requested themselves the equal query, and unusually the most effective one to speak became Typhon, who had visited Percy on his loose weekend. He smells robust, stronger than even Percy or Talia. I assume they hate him much greater than everybody else. He smells stronger than a baby of the huge 3? And why could they hate him so much? Has every person seen him before? Annabeth requested, but most effective got no's in response. It topics little who he is. We have to reposition ourselves and attack the monsters as soon as feasible, Chiron said with a frown on his face, nonetheless questioning who this mysterious person was. In the brief time the campers talked, Naruto had all started his combat, and not like his closing fight against Madara, it turned into not even near a truthful combat. He enjoyed the combating once more. Most of the monsters had been too gradual to keep up with his pace, and he danced through their ranks, even as the usage of his swords and bow, and the occasional shuriken or kunai, to send the monsters lower back to Tartarus, fast decimating the troop that tried to attack the camp. After a few moments of combating on his own, the campers had formed a phalanx and began to flee at the opposite facet of the navy, that had shrunken quite a piece within the time Naruto fought on his very own. After numerous greater minutes the fight became received, and the last final monsters attempted to escape, just to be stopped by arrows from some of the Apollo kids alongside the hunters and Naruto. Stated Blonde had sealed away most of his system, before each person ought to get an excellent lock at it, and whilst the final monster had died, Naruto sheathed his tanto and begun to lazily walk as much as the campers to greet them. A sudden rumble in the back of him caught his interest, and earlier than he ought to react, the charging minotaur picked him up and rammed him in opposition to a close-to tree. He became able to stab it together with his looking knife, before it is able to end the deadly blow that it turned into about to deal. His closing notion earlier than slipping into unconsciousness became that his hubris had valued him dearly. The campers have been bowled over that someone who hadn't been educated in camp, changed into capable of kill such a lot of monsters in one of these quick time, which include the scary minotaur. Currently the unknown hero's lifestyle seemed to be on the verge of dying, so Talia collectively with some of the unharmed campers rushed in the direction of him to likely store his existence. Now whilst someone, or even a half-blood, would fight a conflict as arduous as this, they would be out for as a minimum a day. But Naruto wasn't simplest the Jinchuriki of the Jubi, which got here within first-rate restoration thing, however also the pupil of Kakashi Hatake, a famous shinobi, that had spent years operating as an ANBU captain. So clearly he had drilled his genin to be aware of their surrounding at any time, even if they had been at sleep or like Naruto now semi-subconscious. So, when he felt Talia achieving towards him to test his wounds, his reflex kicked in, and faster than each person could observe he had pinned Talia to the ground with a kunai resting at her throat. It took him a 2D to realize what he had completed, and he blushed in embarrassment earlier than announcing, "Ups, ahem, sorry about that." Antique behavior die hard. Through it regarded more like a question than an explanation to some. No one appeared to recognize what to say, so Naruto rubbed his again earlier than saying, "Nicely, my name is Naruto. I'm a half of blood like you. Sorry for attacking," he said with a smile toward the still gaping Talia. "What else?" "Ah sure, I don't advise getting hit with the aid of the bull. It hurts like a bitch. And if it is okay with you, I would really like to skip out now." And authentic to his phrase, he fell to the floor before absolutely everyone was able to react. Oh Naruto become out cold for a few hours. Before he wakened when he heard someone on foot into the room he become resting in. But unlike the ultimate time, he remained complete silent, due to the fact he turned into curious approximately what might happen. "Who do you believe you studied he is?" whispered a voice that he recognized as a woman. "I don't know, but he must have skilled actually difficult to take down that many monsters." A male voice spoke back. "Yes, seaweed mind. You had been out cold for days after combating just a minotaur, and unlike you he does not droll in his sleep," a second female voice said, and even as Naruto's eyes remained closed, he could almost experience the grin on her face. "Oh, so seaweed brain drools in his sleep?" The primary woman voice teased. "Shut it, pinecone face," the boy stated, annoyance clear in his voice. "So, do you believe you studied we have to wake him up?" asked the other lady. "No, let him relaxation. I guess he may be out for at least an afternoon, after this kind of combat." "Annabeth," replied the older woman. Naruto, nevertheless laying frivolously on his mattress, thought approximately what he had heard. So, pinecone face, seaweed brain and Annabeth? Now what to do? "I suppose I've scared them sufficient for now, so no flashy justice. What must I do?" "What should?" But his notion procedure become rudely interrupted via Percy tripping above his personal FT and nearly crashing into him if it hadn't been for his reflexes. "You understand that it is considered unpolite to strive laying down on someone else without their permission?" requested Naruto, the heap on the floor that was the darkish-haired boy. "Oh, you're up already? You must have a quite quick regeneration if you have already recovered," the black-haired female said. "Yeah, I was instructed so before. However, it's sort of hard to stay asleep if 3 demigods selected to discuss their existence to your room." Naruto spoke back satirically. They all regarded sheepishly, at the same time as wondering at what factor the blonde had observed them, and how he become so exact at pretending to be at sleep, before Annabeth remembered why that they had come inside the first location. "Oh, sorry, but Mr. D and Chiron clearly wanted to speak with you. Come on, we can bring you to them." After a short walk from the medical room to what seemed to be a commonplace room, the blonde was seated in a chair at a table with Mr. D in his Bermuda blouse and Chiron in his wheelchair. "Ah, Mr. Chiron started speak me, Namikaze Naruto," the one half-blood responded. "Mr. Naruto." Chiron endured, simply to be interrupted again. "No, it would sincerely be Mr. Namikaze, however please call me Naruto." At this Mr. D checked out the blonde for the first time, sincerely spotting the name sample and the slight accent that changed into nevertheless left. "Are you from Japan, Namikaze-san?" requested the god in ideal Eastern. Now not pretty, but I've grown up speaking Japanese and just lately discovered English. Dionysus Dano, answered Naruto, with a moderate chortle. Oh, pretty observant, aren't you? Dionysus stated with a smirk on his face. It comes with my job description to be observant. In any other case I would not have made it thus far. The 3 other 1/2 bloods have been truly stunned by using the communication that came about in the front of them. Mr. D become typically now not the nicest guy you can met. And what activity did the blonde pointed out? You don't seem to be too amazed by way of all the monsters. I take it that you don't need to peer the usual introduction video? Chiron requested, amused. No, I've been knowledgeable approximately the situation, and whilst I've already learned pinecones, Annabeth, and Seaweed's name, I would love to know who you are too, stated Naruto with a big smirk on his face at the aggravated expression on Talia's and Percy's face. Ah, sure, of course my call is Chiron. Naruto frowned for a few seconds before he realized which Chiron sat in front of him, and nodded before asking, isn't a wheelchair a step returned in motion speed? The centaur simply chuckled, spoke back that it became, but that it additionally become extra relaxed in slim rooms. There was an ungainly silence for some seconds. Earlier than Dionysus commenced, speak me once more. Whilst you say that you grew up speak me Japanese, but aren't from there, do you thoughts asking me in which you sincerely from? Must I inform him already? Should I inform they all? It is certain to pop out, and in comparison to my historical past they cannot really deny it if I display them a few justice. Besides, I assume it's higher to offer them 1 chakra on the time. In any other case they will get a coronary heart attack. Naruto speedy pondered, before identifying to inform Dionysus first and watch for what he had to say. Before telling the alternative 1/2 bloods, Naruto took a deep breath before starting. What do approximately shinobi? The cool ones I suggest, that hail from the hidden villages and might use chakra. He may want to see that Chiron seemingly understood Japanese and had heard some gods speak about his domestic but by no means been there, even as Dionysus frowned and asked, how do you already know approximately them? Nicely, of root I understand them, I'm one, that got the preferred reaction from both immortals. But how? They requested, long tail quick I was death, my figure made a cope with a primordial from this global. I had the guide of one from my global, and so it become feasible for me to come back here. I'm aware that at the same time as you can recognize that this will be possible, you possibly do not trust me. So, look here. And whilst he finished his explanation, he formed a Rasengan in his hand, that got an amazed response from all of us in the room, which include each immortals. How did you do that? Requested Percy, excited. A few trick I picked up, Naruto spoke back lamely. This is pretty the chakra manipulation. I do not suppose I have visible every person else do something like this before, Dionysus said with the shock still clean on his face. So, do you think I have to inform the campers now? Requested Naruto, particularly excited about telling different human beings of his home. Answer me some things first. And after a nod from Naruto, the wine god started out his wondering, you are a shinobi, proper? Sure, which village and what rank? Konohagakuren. Genin, Naruto replied, slightly embarrassed that he changed into by no means promoted. Become that a question? No, although I would like to add, that while I officially became nevertheless a genin, after I died, I wasn't simply taken into consideration such. After all, what number of S-rank genin do you know? S-rank, at your age? Are you positive? What do you need to mention? Nice, I accept as true with you. I think it might be great to tell the camp this night at dinner. Dionysus sighed. He failed to like his job. However, this brat could both be a whole lot of fun or quite a few problem. Please be so type to expose Mr. Namikaze here round camp and don't bother him with too many questions. You have got heard Mr. D. He will explain the whole lot this night, Chiron said to the other 3 demigods, with a sigh. Like Dionysus, he nonetheless wanted time to technique the whole lot he had just heard. Okay, come on Naruto, Talia stated happily earlier than dragging him out of the house. 000 Naruto, what turned into all that approximately in there? And in which do you learn combating like that? Requested Percy. Are not you eager? I assume that it might be quality to attend till tonight with the whole tale. In any other case you likely might not believe me. However, let's simply say that I will do a little, tremendous things, inclusive of fighting a horde of monsters easily, he stated with a huge grin on his face, Annabeth evaluated his declaration for a 2D before beginning to tell him a touch bit approximately the camp, which are the cabins. The only within the inside are of the predominant Olympian gods, and in view that a few months ago we additionally have cabins for a few minor gods, there are Zeus. And even as Annabeth turned into pointing at each cabin, and telling him which god they belonged to and who the counselor become, his eyes laid on cabin 8, his mother's, in which he noticed her hunters go in and out. Cabin 2 and 8 are simply honorary, due to the fact both Hera and Artemis don't have children. However, whilst the hunters go to, like now, they use the cabin of their lady, Naruto confronted moved into a nearly invisible smirk when Annabeth said that Artemis would not have children. He become sure that there could be a few hilarious response whilst he become claimed. But in which am I going to sleep? I don't assume the hunters would like to proportion their cabin with me. However, before he became able to find an answer, Annabeth started to stroll once more and talked about various schooling grounds. Why does every person appearance so gloomy? Requested Naruto. His partner's the battle, muttered Percy. We simply won the last conflict, and now a new one has already started. On pinnacle of that there may be a new prophecy that has everybody on facet. I have heard about this prophecy. Would you show up to realize the entire textual content? No longer. Sincerely, the most effective component we realize that it is about the child of a virgin goddess, meaning that it may be all of us from the Athena cabin, stated Talia. Why simply Athena? Are not there 3 virgin goddesses? I think Artemis and Hestia have additionally sworn to stay virgin. Yeah, however virgins commonly don't have children, stated Percy with a deadpan expression. Naruto simply shrugged and stated, if Athena is capable of it, the other might be as well. They're the goddess of childbirth and family, so it seems to be relatively in their domain. Before one of the demigods may want to respond, a new voice all of a sudden cried out, Hi, a beginner, up already? Permit me introduce you, Clarice, stated Naruto's 3 associate in union. Meanwhile said girl made her way over to the blonde to start his induction ritual. Clarice, aren't you searching like a nice playground bully? At this a number of the surrounding campers started out to giggle. The scene fast attracted some people. What changed into that newbie? Requested the lady angrily. As opposed to answering, Naruto sniffed, earlier than smiling. I think you desired to invite Seaweed Mind right here for a shower, seeing as you have not had one for the reason that monsters attacked. That assertion turned into followed with the aid of laughter from the campers and an embarrassed Clarice, who quick got angrier than earlier than, Why you? She said, earlier than she and the various goons which have walked took a threatening leap forward. Naruto, who changed into quiet for the time being, attempted to remember what Annabeth had informed him earlier than, simply to understand who was in front of him. Clarice Los Angeles Rue, counselor of Cabin 5, and daughter of Ares, he said with a light frown on the cease. Got a trouble with that? She requested, threading, thinking he might go into reverse rapid. However, to her marvel, he got a thoughtful appearance on his face. With you truly no longer. I don't decide human beings with the aid of who their parents are. However, I do not know approximately your father, he stated earlier than pausing. I do not suppose you could blame every warfare that had occurred on him. That might be silly. But from what I've discovered about Greek history, he started out as a minimum sum, so yeah, I type of dislike him, like any other man or woman, who has experienced the horrors, would dislike a warmonger like him, he stated with a scowl on his face. Remembering the rate that such a lot of paid in the struggle, most of the campers had been bowled over to listen such an eloquent concept. However, more importantly, that the blonde seemingly had experienced the conflict already. Clarice as a substitute selected to be indignant, and rushed the blonde to get him in a headlock. To her and anybody's marvel, Naruto avoided her and alternatively caught her of shield, twisted her proper arm on her again, and held his kunai to her throat. You need an extended way to move before you've got a hazard with that, he stated along with his standard smirk lower back in place. After everybody has long passed again to what they have been doing before, Talia selected to ask every other query. What's the cope with your guns anyway? We attempted to take them off so that you may want to relaxation greater with no trouble, but they would not circulate a piece. For the first time given that he woke up, Naruto regarded down at himself. He had sealed away his flak vest alongside a lot of his swords, so that the campers wouldn't ask too many questions. Currently he simply wore his black shirt, that now showed an orange Uzumaki swirl on the front, and loose ninja pants, alongside the tanto that was strapped on his proper thigh and an unmarried kunai holster on the other. It wouldn't be best for a combat, however he felt secure in the camp, and it become higher than scaring them with the arsenal of weapons he kept on himself. It is one of the outstanding things I pointed out, but what's next? Properly, it is nonetheless pretty early. We generally might do a little activities right now. Care to sign up for us? Requested Percy. Yes, sure, Naruto said with a shrug, at the same time as inwardly he changed into happy that they failed to ask too many questions and excited about the possibility of seeing the training techniques they used here.